plaintiff, Nina Nadanova, rented a room in the defendant's home. And although they were attracted to each other when they met, they decided to keep it platonic. Nina claims the defendant had multiple women, and she's suing because he failed to return her security deposit. Defendant Carlton Monroe says he thought Nina would make a good roommate because they were both single parents. However, Carlton claims Nina was rude to his female friends, and he says he kept her deposit because she damaged his home.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
Well, I was looking for a room to rent back in December 2017. I have a daughter and 2 cats, and I was looking for a room so I can save money for a house, and eventually I can save up some money to go and see my family overseas. So when I was doing that, I came across Carlton's ad, and I contacted him by email. So he got back to me. He was very excited that I came across his ad because he was looking for someone as well to rent the room to. So we met. We spoke a lot over the text prior to meeting as well. And when we met, I'm not going to hide, we did have a mutual attraction. However, when we spoke more down the road, we had like 3 weeks to get to know each other. We realized we're not a good fit for each other because he was looking for someone to move to Europe with, and I was looking for someone to settle down and have a family with in the States. So we just decided to keep it strictly platonic, just be friends, you know, and keep it professional.
He lived in the house also?
Yes, correct. Okay. So I moved into the house on January 2nd,
what was the
2018.
amount? The rent?
The rent was $650, including utilities.
$650?
And,
all right.
Correct. So as soon as I moved to the house, things started to change very quickly. I've noticed a lot of women were going in and out of the house with kids or no kids. And that whole situation was making me feel very uncomfortable. So I approached Carlton.
Had you all discussed having company when you moved in?
Yeah, we had a discussion.
What was that discussion? What was the agreement on company?
The company was just no dates. No, we could not bring any.
Neither of you could bring your date.
We could not bring the dates to his home.
Does he own the home?
Yes, he owned the home.
But he better not bring no woman there. That's the essence of what you're saying, well, and that you had him agree to that.
Exactly. So,
okay.
And so when I moved in the house and the women were going in and out, I asked him, are you dating them? Because they make me feel very uncomfortable because they would never acknowledge me. They would never say hi.
What do you mean by uncomfortable? Unsafe or?
I just felt like uneasy. I felt like he was using me as a tool so these women would be jealous of me because I felt like there was some jealousy going on. So that's what made me feel comfortable because I realized I was already trapped. I was under contract, and I just felt...
He was using you to make the other women jealous who he wasn't even supposed to have at the house.
Exactly.
I'm hearing from you.
Yes, Your Honor. It seems kind of odd to me, the whole situation. I thought the arrangement was pretty well established. The main reason one of the reasons I moved Nina into the house is because she has an 11-year-old daughter. I have an 8-year-old daughter of my own. They got along fairly well. Early on, as Nina stated, there probably was a little bit of mutual attraction, but I noticed fairly quickly that we were not a good fit, and she really wasn't my type, to be honest.
She says because you wanted to move to Europe, and she didn't.
That's incorrect, Your Honor.
What happened?
The way I see it, I would do things for her as far as, you know, if she would work, I would watch her daughter, take her out with me, my daughter, and my female friends, all of whom have children of their own. I established playdates for my young daughter, and Aline was welcome to come with on those playdates, which she did. My female friends started noticing that Nina would throw shade when they would show up. She would say things like, oh, I don't know if I've met you before, so many women come through here. And that's just not an accurate statement.
You told one of the women that?
I never spoke to them directly. I never interacted with women directly. And
why?
Because when I said hello and they don't acknowledge me...
That's directly?
Well, just saying hello, but I didn't continue the conversation with them. I didn't I didn't tell them anything about them being in the house or anything like this.
Okay, you just said hello. And
I would
kept
just say
going.
hello, and
And
I
they
would
would
just
say
feel
hello
like,
back, or what would they do?
No, not really. They would just like, okay, you know, like they would never even acknowledge me.
Just
like,
wouldn't say anything.
Yes, as if I wasn't even around. They would either say hi back, but it wasn't like sincere.
You didn't like, or it wasn't a sincere hello.
It was.
That's what you felt.
At times, they wouldn't say anything.
But the times they did, you didn't think it was sincere.
It wasn't sincere.
Got it. All right. Did you all, first of all, have a discussion about who could bring dates or
Yes, Your
over
Honor.
to the house? And what
In the
was
lease,
that?
in the lease itself, it states that no one can have company overnight or any company past 10 o'clock if the children are home. So that never happened. If Aline was home, I never had any women over to my home.
Did they treat her rudely? She says they
Not at all.
treated her rudely.
I don't believe so, because the way the house is set up is the master bedroom's downstairs, which is what she rented. She rented the master bedroom, bath, and adjoining closet. The 3 other bedrooms in a loft where I and my daughter stayed are upstairs. So they would come in. If they saw Nina, they would speak. Most of the time, Nina was in her room, fairly reclusive. She wasn't really coming out at all. And when she did come out, it was mainly, like I said, seemingly to throw shade. I don't know if she had some other inclination that maybe she wanted something to go further between us. And when that didn't happen, she decided she wanted to become a little vendettive. I don't know.
Disruptive in the household.
And disruptive is, I guess, a term you could use, but I didn't really catch on to it. It was my 2 female friends that said, hey, do you realize that she's saying little things that kind of try to put you in a bad light? I didn't pay any mind because, like I said, I don't typically mix business with pleasure. And once I realized that we weren't compatible, it was strictly tenant-landlord relationship.
Okay. Tell me why you're suing him for this breach of contract, $283.
When I moved into the house, I paid $650 rent and $650 deposit. So I only got $368 back, and Carlton kept $283, which is a partial
security deposit.
Partial deposit. And so he charged me basically half of the, that's what he stated in the breakdown, half of the carpet cleaning, half of the house cleaning, and then the full full repair of the faucet.
Okay. Did he give you, you have the list today?
The list?
Of the thing? Yeah, you should. He should have
Right.
given you a list.
Yes, I do.
Saying, and the amount that he was charging.
Right.
Sir, let me hear from you on the security deposit.
The security deposit, in fact, Your Honor, was $650. The copper cleaning was $166. I charged her half, $83. The master faucet, which was broken in the master faucet in the master bedroom, was $150 total to be repaired.
You never used that bathroom?
When she lived there, Your Honor, no.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No. All right.
So I charged her $75 of the $150, and the cleaning was $240, of which I charged her $120 to come out to $283.
Yeah. What does house cleaning mean? Define that.
Well, I had to have the
What did he
carpet
do?
professionally cleaned because her cats vomited on my carpet on more than one occasion.
Carpet cleaning. What else?
I had the house professionally cleaned in general because she moved out, and I wanted to bring I was getting ready to sell the house, so I also wanted to bring the house back into reasonable conditions, which Nina did not help with. The house was very unclean, especially the kitchen area, and I have photographs of that
What
as well.
type of unusual wear and tear was there?
The faucet in the kitchen was broken at one point. The faucet in her bathroom was broken, and the banister was pulled off the wall because Aline, you know, nothing against
How
the
much
child,
did you
would yank
charge
on
her for that?
I didn't charge anything for the banister.
Okay, well, let's stick with what we're charging for, because most of what I've heard is normal wear and tear. You do have to get I hope you get the carpet clean for your new tenants when they come in, and don't have to walk on the same carpet that the nasty tenants before them walked on. You're supposed to clean that carpet. What else?
Well, I didn't think normal wear and tear was her cats vomiting on my carpet.
But all it required was carpet cleaning, right?
Carpet cleaning in the
There
house.
you go. You didn't replace it. You cleaned it.
Yes.
Next.
That's pretty much it. Your
Just the
Things I
carpet
listed.
clean. All right, which is normal wear and tear. Okay. He wants to withhold your deposit for what I'm going to conclude was normal wear and tear. Everyone should get the carpet clean. When you bring another tenant in, I thought you would know that as a landlord. Was this your first time?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, well, you got to know normal wear and tear. It would be considered things that would be reasonably expected to occur when you transition from one tenant to another. And that would be painting the walls,
Yes, sir.
and cleaning the carpet at the very least. And the faucet, however, I'll listen more about that. Ma'am, what do you say about the faucet? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll gladly share it with you about the faucet. So the faucet, first of all, I smelled the really bad smell coming out of the faucet on April 7, 2018, when I was still living in the house. Way before, like a year almost before I moved out of the house. So I addressed it to Carlton. I have a text message about that. April 24th, 2018, the faucet broke. The way it broke, I lifted the handle and it broke because of the corrosion, because the water in Nevada is really
And
bad.
landlords typically have to make repairs.
And it was 2018.
Let me see that. And what did he
Yes.
say?
2018.
Did he repair it or try to repair it?
He did repair 6 months later. So the faucet was repaired in October 20.
You were still living there?
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's what we're trying to get to.
Right.
And sir, landlords are responsible for repairs unless you have something different in your lease.
In the lease, it states for the master bedroom, the bathroom, and the
Repairs?
closet. Repairs. If
Let's
she, that
see,
she is to
let's
make
see that
repairs.
page. Did you know that? That you were responsible for all repairs in the living area that you were in?
Unless it was naturally occurred and it wasn't forced. I didn't maliciously do that. We had a
It
conversation.
says that in there? Okay. She says it said the only way she's responsible is if she does it maliciously.
I didn't.
I have a text.
Maintenance. The tenant roommate will, at its sole expense, keep and maintain the master bedroom, private bath, and common areas of the house in good sanitary condition and repair during the term of this lease. So do you have the amount that you paid for that?
I do, Your Honor.
Repair during the term of this lease. It says you had to repair things.
Unless it was wear and tear. It was a corrosion, a lot of corrosion. There, I have a picture of the faucet that was broken, and
See it.
yeah. And then I have a text message before I moved in when I asked
But
Carlos.
no, we're going to go from
Right.
October when
Right.
you say it was repaired.
Right, it was repaired.
So,
Nothing was.
right,
Broken
and
up.
this was, what is this? When was this?
That was April. That was April 2018, and then
before he repaired it.
before the repair. So the repair was in October 2018.
So you're saying this is old and in disrepair already. And
Right,
it appears
yeah.
that is the case.
Right,
So
so-
I'm going to grant your judgment because it does appear that that was already in disrepair, sir. So she wouldn't be responsible for a pre-existing damage. And that's what I'm going to conclude this is, looking at it. Have a good day. Judgment for the plaintiff.
I don't see how from January to April is somehow my fault. It worked for 5 months fine before she broke it off with a Herculean strength.
I think every statement that Carlton ever made was unreasonable. He was just a bully and a pushover, and I don't put up with it.
Plaintiff Jema Mason says when she first met the defendant, she approached him. But things didn't go anywhere because the defendant was married. Jema claims she helped the defendant find an apartment and she paid his first month's rent and security deposit. But she's suing because he has yet to repay her. Defendant James Montgomery says he first learned of Jema on social media. But when they met in person, she looked very different than she did online. James insists he paid his own first month's rent and security deposit, and therefore he owes Jema nothing.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
In 2010 is when I met the defendant. I was coming out of a club. He was sitting in front of the club on his motorcycle. I did something that I usually don't do. I approached him and introduced myself. We exchanged numbers. We talked on the phone, 2 or 3 times. The defendant did tell me he was married, but going through a divorce. I don't do married men, so that was kind of the end of that. We ran back into each other again in 2018. He was in another relationship then, so again, nothing transpired. It was pretty much a business from there on out, which leads into him moving into.
I'll allow him to give me some background, and then you can tell me how the transaction or the agreement began and what the agreement was. Sir,
Yes,
you want to give me some background?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. What she said was correct. We met, well, actually we met years ago on social media, on Black Planet. So I think it might be a little farther back than 2010. I think it actually might be like 2004 when we first met. But we first met in person in 2010. Like, we hadn't seen each other for a while, and I'm a promoter and a DJ back in Indianapolis, so I work in the clubs. It was a night I had off. A friend of mine was having a birthday party at a local pub, so we rode our motorcycles up there. Beautiful night. So we sit down in the parking lot having a couple beers. Her and her friend came out, and you know, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, they cute." I'm like, "Hey, they are pretty nice looking." So we start to converse, and she brings it up the fact that, "Hey, you don't even know who I am, do you?" And I'm like, No, I honestly don't. And I didn't remember who she was from her looks, because her looks didn't match what she had on the internet back then. So.
Which was what?
I mean, I'm
That mean?
look, hey, look. So, but I mean, you know, there's filters. There's all kind of ways that they do pictures nowadays, and it just, like, from her appearance at the club that night when I saw her, I didn't remember her from the social media, basically. So once we conversed, you know, and we spoke, and we spoke for a few times, like she said, and then our conversation ceased.
Why?
Probably lack of interest on both parts, maybe, I think. For whatever the reason was, we just didn't hit off as.
She said it was because you were married. She didn't tell you that?
No. No, that little piece of information was omitted at the time.
So when you saw in 2018, did you all try and light the fire then?
No, I tried to get a house, you know.
Good enough. Let me hear about that.
Okay. All right. So one of my contractors called me and said that his brother was looking for a place to live. I have a property management company, so at the time I had a few empty properties. I asked him for him and his brother to meet me at the property. Lo and behold, they come over. It's Mr. Montgomery. So I'm like, wow, you know, this is crazy. So anyway, I show him the property. He does a walkthrough, thoroughly show him everything in the house. He likes it, decides he wants it. So he got approved for the property. We met over there on the November 1st. He signed the lease. He did tell me at the time that he did not have the funds for the house. He said that he was waiting on money from his previous landlord. To pay you the money to lease it? To pay me the rent and deposit.
Okay. When did he say he would pay?
He didn't, he said in a matter of days.
Oh, okay.
He was just waiting to hear back from his previous landlord.
Matter of days.
So days went by. We did not talk, Mr. Montgomery did not bring up anything about the money.
What were y'all talking about then?
Issues that were going on in his house.
Okay.
There were some things that he wanted fixed, and I was working with the actual owner
Did you ask
to
about
get them
the
fixed.
money?
Yes, I did.
And what did he tell you?
He was going to give it to me.
Okay.
Actually, and I told him November 15th was when I actually have to pay my owners out.
Okay.
So he had a little bit of time. So come November 14th, I reminded him, tomorrow's the day that I have to pay my owners out. What are you going to do? So he started talking about the different things that were wrong with the house. Like I told him, once you have signed the lease, once you are in the house, it doesn't matter what's wrong with it. I will get that fixed, but you still have to pay your money.
What were the repairs he complained about?
He said that there was the siding coming off of the bathroom. The walling was coming down. He said something about the drainage in the bathtub. The bathtub wouldn't drain. I do remember that. There was nothing that he couldn't
You didn't
live
bring
there.
any Drano over there? That's all you had to do for that. You didn't want your money. All you had to do is bring some Drano.
Hey, Dollar General was right around the corner. He could have went and got the Drano
But
too.
he wasn't paying you, so you better go get the Drano so you can get your money. Why didn't you get some Drano?
Your Honor, I mean, I'm doing my best not to interrupt her. I'm gonna let her speak as respectful to a woman.
Well, she's pretty much said that you withheld payment because the siding and the drainage. All right, let me hear from you, sir.
Okay, Your Honor. First of all, I never moved in. The water.
Did you sign the lease? That's the
No,
issue.
I didn't sign a lease.
Ma'am, he didn't sign a lease?
Yes, he did, November 1st,
let's
right
see it.
here.
No.
We're about to bust this case wide open.
Yeah, here we go. Here's the lease that I did sign.
Here's the lease you did sign.
Yeah, so
Yes, sir.
You just say you didn't sign a lease.
Not her lease.
No, you said I didn't sign a lease.
Not hers, with her
You
management
said
company.
a. That
Yes,
means
sir.
none.
Yes,
So let's
sir.
see what you say you did sign now.
Your Honor, as to the condition of the house, the reason why I didn't move in, there was more than standing water. There was standing water in the tub that was all the way to the top. There was standing water in the kitchen sink that was all the way to the top on both sides. The toilet was overflowing and the kitchen sink was flowed. What I had to end up doing was, out of my pocket, pay a plumber to come out $1,800 to snake the whole plumber from the street, from the main all the way to the house. They never fixed anything. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the management company that she runs is no longer my management company.
Okay, and you never moved in?
I never moved in November. I moved in December.
And you're still there?
I'm still there, sir.
I'm busy reading this.
Yes, sir, I'm still there.
Discrepancy in the lease.
I moved in December, and my rent was $650, not $750.
No, I'm talking about what I'm reading.
Okay, yes, sir.
And the legal document that you all purport to have signed, and I have 2 signatures on each contract.
Yes. Can I tell you why? There's two.
Sure.
There's two, because when I could not get to the owner to take care of some of the some of the repairs, I talked him into lowering Mr. Montgomery's rent. So instead of paying $750, he would now pay $650.
You had him sign 2 agreements regarding the same thing on 2 different occasions that you all have both signed as true.
Okay, well, I also have a text message saying that he owes me.
All right, let's see that, please. I had a funeral today. I need to sign that lease also, so I owe you $1,300, question mark.
I also have something saying that
And I need to sign that lease, and that was on December 1st.
That was the lease from December 1st.
Your Honor, I never signed that
He knew he was
lease.
signing a second lease. Pardon?
I never signed any lease with her until February.
Until what?
February.
All right.
Now what?
Judgment for the plaintiff. This says December, sir.
Okay.
No,
You have
that's
one that
from the
says
new management
January
company.
and December.
That's from the new management company. What I'm saying, Your Honor, is she kept giving me leases, but they were never right, so I
Show
never
me the one
signed
you
it.
signed.
The one you got is the one
It
I
says
signed.
December, sir, not
That's
February.
the new
Judgment for the plaintiff.
That's the
Have
new
a good
management
day.
company.
Sir, it
Thank you.
says December, not
Thank you,
February.
Your
That's the new
Honor.
management company
keep
after
saying
she got
February.
fired.
I won. I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't have the money. If I would have known that, we never would have went through all this. But thank you.
I
It's very
had
nice
the money,
being
I just
here.
didn't have a livable house to move into.
Okay, well, you stayed there, so that's all that matters.
Plaintiff Angela Brown rented a house from the defendant, and their relationship was good until Angela discovered the defendant was money hungry and manipulative. Angela is suing for a security deposit and personal property. Defendant Pauline Thomas admits that Angela was an ideal tenant, but says she was also an ideal landlord. Pauline claims when Angela moved out, she damaged Pauline's property, and she's countersuing for travel expenses.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
Pauline Thomas is my past landlord. Basically, upon moving out, I found out it feels like she's very vindictive, untrustworthy, money hungry, and manipulative. Our relationship as landlord and tenant was great all the way until the point I moved out.
When did you move in?
I moved in March of 2019.
And when did you leave out?
Move out of May of 2020. You know, Judge Mathis, I've been working since I was 14. I know the value of $1. I take great pride in my home. To me, I felt like I was the ideal tenant. I paid my rent on the 1st of each month. Pauline has told me even herself that she was lucky to have me as a tenant. I've done things to bring value to her home, small projects that she gave me permission to do. And on top of that, you know, I feel like I give people the benefit of the doubt, which I gave her, and I never thought it would turn out this way.
Ma'am, let me hear from you.
I agree. Angela was an ideal tenant. She paid on time. But I also was an ideal landlord. When she moved in, I could tell right away that she was going to be a little needy. There's stuff I lived in the house with for 14 years. It wasn't a problem. But for Angela, like there was crayon on the door. I changed all the interior doors for her. Long story short, I agree. Everything was fine up until she moved out. And then she damaged my property and I charged her for it, and then there was a problem.
Okay, let me hear from you about the exact nature of the claim you have. Deposit and the property. Tell me what happened.
Sure. The deposit that I'm going after is the $795. She refunded me $366. I'm still due for the remaining $458. Also, the property, there was a flood damage in her basement that I did advise her of. My insurance company denied me, and they told me to contact the homeowner.
What damage was there?
There was loss of property such as sentimental items. My flat screen TV was the most valuable thing down there.
When did you lose that?
This happened in the month of September of 2019.
September of 19.
Yes, after 6 months of staying there.
So what was the discussion after September?
She kind of brushed it off and, you know, as if it wasn't a big issue. After making several attempts to try to get her to do something through her insurance company and only staying there for 6 months, I kind of let that part go until, you know, until I pretty much moved out, and then she did this, and I'm just like, this was something that was a total shock.
Okay, so you feel that I gave her a break, and since she's not on the deposit, I'll sue her for what I gave her a break on. Is that pretty much what are you doing?
That's not
Why didn't you do it before then?
Why didn't I do it before?
You stayed there for an additional 8 months.
Yes,
and
I did.
did nothing. So now why suddenly is it a problem?
Okay, well, I felt like I just kind of brushed things off. I'm just that's my
So why did you brush them back on?
I did. I brought it up.
Why?
I brought it back up to her several times.
When's the last time you brought it up to her?
This was maybe about a month or so after, again, going back to not being a confrontational person. I kind of brushed it off the same way after she did. And
well, you got plenty of money. I wouldn't brush off thousands. All right, go ahead, ma'am. Let me hear from you on the property first. Let's start there that she's suing about.
Yeah, so I told her in April, she moved in March, and I told her in April, and I have an email to prove it, that the basement floor slopes towards the drain because with excessive rain, it can get wet. So I'm not sure why she would put all of her valuables by a drain, but she chose to do that. And on this number 11 in paragraph 5, she says items as pictures, comforter sets, clothing, paper documents that were boxed in coats. So I thought that was stuff that could be washed, comforters and coats. So I didn't know how it went from some coats and comforters to $1,500 worth of damage.
Did you ever agree to reimburse or pay her?
No, I did not. And in her lease, if you look on page 5, under the I don't know how to say it, Your Honor, indemnification and liability clause, it says that tenant shall identify, defend, and hold landlord harmless from all
right, but first I want to determine whether there was an agreement for you to pay for the damage. You say she was informed. You don't believe you were negligent because you informed her and warned her not to put things in harm's way? Ma'am, did she tell you? Did she warn you?
That was a different side of the basement.
That's not true, Your Honor. That's the whole point of it. The whole floor can get wet. And so if it does, it slopes so it can drain out the drain.
So you never identified it. You never identified a particular area.
No, not a particular area. I just said that the whole floor slopes towards the drain.
She didn't describe the place it occurs, ma'am?
No, she did not.
Okay. Well,
not at all.
But she did tell you that the basement floods. She told you. You knew it. You know it. And you took the risk of putting your things down there. Security deposit, how does she owe you for that?
Well, the security deposit, she's took deductions out of there. I think she did it for things like hanging back up her curtains, that she charged me for that. She charged me for other things, that water bill, I would have to pay water bill in my name. She sent me an email showing me that.
Did you get it in your name?
I ended up calling there and they told me, and I was just agreeing to her because she never had me sign anything, but me wanting to be, you know, a nice person, and that's my personality.
No, wanting to continue living there.
Correct.
Yeah, me wanting to continue staying there, not being a nice person. You did it because you wanted to stay there.
I wanted to stay there. Okay. You know, I had just stayed there.
Because you can do it without staying there. You can you can move and then be a nice person and keep giving her money.
Yeah.
Now, that's real nice.
Yeah.
If you want to be really nice.
Well, yeah, I guess.
If that's the reason you pay your bills, go
ahead. I pay my bills because it's the right thing to do.
All right. Go ahead.
I called the water bill place. They told me the owner has to do it. Mm-hmm. She never changed the water bill over in my name, and she deducted that from my security deposit.
But because you knew she had told you you'd have to pay it, right?
She did verbally tell me that, and she sent me an email, but it was nothing requiring me to sign for it. But I did tell her.
That's about signing. You remember you just talked about I love to pay my bills. You don't have to tell me. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm a nice person. But yet, when the landlord says you're going to have to pay this water bill, show me in writing. Let me move on. Okay. Your travel expenses are from what?
My flight was $200.
She likes to pay her debts, so I'm sure she's going to pay this. Go ahead.
Oh, I hope so, Your Honor.
We probably can stop right now. You want to pay this? You'd like to pay your debt?
No, I don't agree to paying it.
She don't think this is her debt.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't have bought a plane ticket home, and I really think, Your Honor, this is why she did this. I live in Arizona, and I think she thought I wasn't going to come home for this frivolous lawsuit. But my flight was $256, the baggage fee was $30, and then I had to pay for dog boarding. So that totals $361.
What do you want to tell me about the blinds, ma'am? You're charging her to put up blinds after it's been vacated?
Yes. Well, she didn't return it back to the way it was. So on page 21, I have an invoice. I had to hire someone to fix my landscaping. She tore out my grass to do a patio and just left it like that. She didn't return the curtains to the way they were.
You expected her to put them back up when leaving to have it just as it was when she moved in?
Correct. I mean, she moved in with the curtains up, so she should have put them back up.
And you want $150 for watering the grass?
The only reason we had to do that is because she ripped up my grass, made her own patio, and then left it like that.
You gave me permission.
Quiet, ma'am. You say she ripped up the grass.
She tore up the grass and she put down, I think it was mulch or rocks or something, and then she put down a tarp so that she can make a patio area. And you did not ask permission for that. You asked to paint the gutters. You never asked for that, and then you left it like that.
You gave me permission to paint your house that you never did because I asked you to paint it because paint was chipping from the outside. As far as the outside patio project, you gave me permission to do that as well. It was two separate occasions. Yes.
You say you asked her and she said yes to putting the mulch down.
She certainly did.
Did you ask her to show me the email?
Pardon me?
Because there's no email of her ever. She asked me about the painting. She painted this much of the gutter, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm not going back into that. Do you have anything regarding any of the mulch in the email of any type?
There were lots of emails that
Do you have anything regarding the mulch?
I didn't.
Not lots of emails. I'm asking about one email.
No, I don't.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to identify, Judge Mathis, that when it was time for her to give me my security deposit back, she called me on the phone and said, Angela, I know you've been a great tenant, but you know, there are some things that I have to deduct from there. Otherwise, I still have a mortgage to pay that I would have to come out of my pocket.
I can afford my mortgage. I paid my mortgage all while I've never.
You all are telling me a bunch of stuff I can care less about.
She's saying that I called her.
Y'all talk about that to each other. Tell her who's doing the best in life. Tell her she had to stay in your place. You didn't have to stay in my place.
I charged her because I couldn't pay my mortgage.
Tell her,
I charged her because that's
right. I love that. Pay my mortgage. Don't you ever say no junk like that. Go ahead, tell her like you're supposed to tell her. Hey, woman, don't you ever say nothing about my mortgage.
Your Honor.
Well, she has two mortgages.
Don't do it to me. I said do it to her.
She has two mortgages, so she's paying one here, in Wisconsin and in Arizona. So it may be tight for her. She had two mortgages,
and tell her you can pay both. Thank you.
Hey,
not a problem, right?
Times are hard. I assume this is possibly why she didn't give me back my security deposit.
I have an email where she told me she was moving out because she got a job in Minnesota. So obviously times are hard for her because she had to downsize.
It was Georgia, to be correct.
You had to downsize?
The first time.
She said you had to downsize.
No, I didn't have to downsize.
You still have your two houses, don't you?
I didn't have to downsize.
You didn't have to downsize, have you?
That's right, Your Honor.
I didn't have to downsize.
What else? You said what?
I didn't have to downsize, Miss Thomas. I actually wanted to because I was paying for landscaping the whole time I was there. I was paying bills for a property that I didn't own, okay. So I decided that I would save more money.
Let me stop, y'all. You ladies have behaved too dignified and professional for me to let this degenerate into anything else. You all have handled this great, unlike some of the folks I have coming here. So I'm not going to change that. I'm proud of you all's level of sophistication, and we're going to keep it there. Ma'am, she doesn't owe you for travel expenses. This is not a frivolous lawsuit. It does have merit. That's not frivolous. Frivolous is if there's no reason, there's no merit, it's just something you're throwing out there trying to get you some money, and you don't even think there's anything in dispute. She believes there's something in dispute, and so do I. Okay, let's get to the property. You were warned. If you put your things in the basement, they may be flooded because I've had this problem before. She shows me that in writing. I took a brief look at that disclaimer, excusing yourself from liability, if you will, for lack of a better term. And, ma'am, you signed an agreement indemnifying her from having to pay anything for any damages to the property. Shall indemnify, defend, and hold landlord harmless from any and all injury, loss, claim, or damage to any person or property. This indemnifies her from covering your personal property, ma'am.
She never asked me to reimburse her property. This is all new after she moved out. She told me about the damage, and I told her I even have that. If you look at
that is not true. My insurance company.
She admitted that she remembered. I told her. I said, "Don't you remember? I told you that this could happen." And then on page 14 in the email, she admitted.
Holly, you told me about a separate side of your basement, and I would never put my items at risk of having water damage. I pay money. I work hard for what I have.
Ma'am, unfortunately, all I can grant you is your security deposit for $458. Have a good day.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Plaintiffs Leroy Beal and his wife Linda say they began using meth and eventually started selling it. But after they were arrested, they cleaned up their act. Linda claims the defendants hired her to watch their child, and she let them rent a room in her home. But she and Leroy are suing today for unpaid rent and babysitting fees. Defendants Patricia Carson and her husband Joseph Miller say Patricia also went to prison, but before she got caught, she was on the run for 3 years. Patricia insists the plaintiffs are suing for more than they owe.
Start with you all.
Well, I would like to start out with giving you a little bit of background. Starting about 16, I started using marijuana, and I used it about 3 years, and then I switched to methamphetamine. And then I met my husband while in that drug trail. And then we decided to try and sell meth.
He was a meth head too when you met him?
Yes, yes, we both were, yes. We're not even gonna try to deny that. Anyways, so my daughter had came into some hard times, her and my grandson, and we were trying to get them out of the state, get them to Arizona. And I seen my, well, somebody else was selling it and make really good money, quick money on it, so I figured this is a quick, easy way to make some money. And we were only doing it for 30 days, and December 1st was supposed to be done. November 31st, we got arrested, and we both went to prison. I'm not proud about going to prison, but it has bettered my life. We took a substance abuse program, both of us did.
Were you all in county jail, or did you go to prison?
Prison.
How long?
I did a year. We both did a year.
How about you?
About the same.
Did you all recover and
yes.
You haven't relapsed?
Yes. I recovered. He did while he was in prison. And then when we got out, then my grandson, my grandson was killed in a car accident at age 4.
Sorry to hear
and I had promised him that I'd make it all up to him. Mm-hmm. May 1st, which was his birthday, which is when I got off of parole. I was moving back home with him, and I promised him I would never, ever do what I did again, to go back to jail or be taken away from him ever again. And I didn't get to make that up to him because he died January 11th, 2 weeks after Christmas. And he was the reason I took the SAU program, the substance abuse program, to better my life for my grandson. But I didn't get to spend, I didn't make that time up with him. But anyways, the whole point of that is that's what made me open my heart to these people, this family. I have a real soft spot for the family.
Where did you know the defendants from?
Mr. Miller had called me about doing some babysitting for him. I had
an ad?
Yeah, I had an ad.
You had an ad looking for a babysitter.
So,
no problem.
So he called me on that.
I know how it is. You smoke all that weed at a young age. You see, I forget things up here now and then.
I've been clean for 5 years.
All that weed at a young age. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he called me on the ad and asked me about babysitting, and I told him my fees, and it's pretty much 24-hour daycare. So, I mean, the child doesn't matter if they're there for 3 hours or for 10 hours, it's still the same price.
What was that price?
$100 a week.
Good price. You undercutting me. I have a grandchild, Nora. I charge $150 when they. My daughter Kamara asked me to babysit. You all want to give me some background?
Well, Your Honor, I've been to prison before too, for drugs and assault.
What type of drug?
Marijuana. I sold marijuana to an undercover cop.
When was this?
2009.
How long were you in prison?
I did altogether 3.5 years.
You must have had 500 pounds.
No, I sold an ounce of marijuana to an undercover cop, and when I went, I was waiting to be extradited to Nebraska because I was actually on the run for 3 years. I skipped state. I tried to avoid.
Well, that's how you got them 3 years.
Well, I assaulted a police officer while I was in jail, and I got another 2 years tacked on. So, yeah.
When did you come home?
I came home in 2014.
All right.
And I've been clean and sober since. I actually have a full-time job.
Excellent.
I'm doing pretty good at it. I've gotten 2 raises in 2 weeks. I'm up for management, so I'm trying to turn my life around.
That's why I keep telling people weed ain't as bad as that crystal meth. That's right. You've been straight ever since. And what do you want to tell me, sir? You get high every now and then.
On the run.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. You know the judge knows. I believe
well, Your Honor, there's nothing really I can say to that.
I know you can. I know
can
you
neither confirm nor deny.
I'll give you a pass. You don't have to talk about your thing, but believe me, I know something is happening with you. All right.
I've been to prison
You called them? Okay, go ahead.
For meth. 3 times. I did the SAU class too. And then did all the extra programming that they had to, the parenting classes and the anger management and all that I wasn't required to do to get back out, and graduated it and have been on the straight and narrow since.
How long were you on meth, sir?
Oh, it's been a long time.
How long were you on it?
Off and on, over 20 years probably.
Yeah.
Off and on, not the whole time, but.
Because I can, sir, you got crystallis ways. Yeah, you got some crystal mannerisms over there. And so tell me why you're suing them. What happened? He responded to the babysitting.
Yes, Your Honor. He had called me and asked me about babysitting, and he came over and he met me, and I started watching his daughter. And I watched her for 3 weeks, starting on October 31st. And then he lost his job. He was supposed to be getting a big check to pay at the end of the 3 weeks.
Check from where, ma'am? Don't tell me income tax.
No. His paycheck. His paycheck.
All right.
Okay, and he ended up losing his job. And then he was going through some really hard times with his old roommates. And I felt badly because of the 5-year-old living with that and listening to how they talked to her dad. So again, I had a soft heart, and because of my past, and he had explained to me his past, I went ahead and, told them that they could rent a room. And so they moved in December 1st, and they paid December, January, and February. And then March came along, and they weren't able to pay March's rent. And my husband, he got laid off when he was thrown from a train. So
your husband was thrown from a train?
Yeah.
What were your injuries? Before
very
I have
minor.
fun,
He
before
had
I have
God on
fun
his
with-
side. God
before
was
I
on
have
his
fun
side.
with you.
Very minor injury,
What,
sir.
with minor injuries?
Very minor. And the
So you're
chain.
still getting high then.
No.
No, sir.
No.
What do you all say to the failure to pay?
Honestly, I don't feel that we owe for the $300 for rent, considering that we were told March 1st that we had to be out by March 31st. Every rental place that I've been in, usually, if they tell you have to be out by a certain day, they give you a certain amount of time to be out.
30 days.
30 days, okay. Well, in my defense, I understood if I had to be out on the 31st of March, why would I give you money for March? So I can use that money to move out on. I was told March 1st, we were told March 1st that we had to be out.
Told y'all what happens to the mind. Told you. Now, she is definitely clean, but those are definitely crackish or crystallish ways.
Nope, not
you
even.
stayed there for March. That's why you have to pay for March.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is, if I was already told March 1st that I had to be out by March 31st, why am I going to turn around and give you money if I'm already told by March 1st that I had to be out? If I have to be out March 31st, you told me that on the 1st I have to be out. I'm saving up all the money I can to get out and get on my own.
All right. I applaud you for that.
And
That's
also,
a good idea.
Well,
but in
also,
the
he had-
meantime, you failed to pay for the time that you lived in her place.
I understand that. He had surgery on his shoulder March 3rd. Okay, I was the only one with an income.
What do you say to the babysitting fees?
I feel we do owe her for babysitting fees.
All right.
I don't know how much or if it's that much, but there was no record on my behalf or that I have seen how much it was.
She's about to hand me something.
I wasn't for that.
We haven't seen that.
I haven't seen any record or that.
All right. And she provides me with the record, so unless you can contest that, and you say you're not sure, she provides me with written records, so I'll grant the babysitting fees. Regarding the rent, your only defense is you didn't even say they kicked you out early or without notice. You say I received notice, 30-day notice. I stayed those 30 days, but I shouldn't have to pay because after she told me I have 30 more days, I start saving up. Meaning I didn't pay her anymore, and I had no intention of paying her for that month because I wanted to save that money to move. Well, that's honorable to want to do, but you can't do that. You have to pay for the time that you live somewhere. $600 is your judgment. Have a good day.
Thank you. I still love them. They're still like family. I mean,
They are family.
they're good people. They are. They just came into some hard times, and
We're trying, we really are.
I know you are. And they are still friends, so.
Plaintiff Blaine Hammond rented an apartment to the defendant and his wife. And after he moved in, Blaine discovered he was a belligerent alcoholic. Blaine claims once, when he confronted the defendant about money he owed, the defendant claimed to be a Navy SEAL and said he was going to put a hit on Blaine. He's suing for unpaid rent. Defendants Pete Lelis and his wife Ann admit that Pete was an alcoholic, but he insists he's currently sober. Pete claims while living in Blaine's rental unit, the property flooded, and Blaine agreed to repay them for the damages. But he failed to do so, so they're countersuing.
Start with you.
I first met the Lelises back in 2012 when they took up residence in my building. Ann had worked for about 15 years with my cousin, so they had a long relationship. I knew that they had an existing eviction, but they wanted to turn their lives around. And Ann is a recovering alcoholic. That's something that is still an issue with Pete. It didn't take long before that started to become a problem. I would receive expletive-laced text messages from him. The neighbors wouldn't let him into their homes.
Why was he sending you these messages? And when did they start?
When I asked for rent, or he would be drinking, and sometimes he wouldn't even remember, like the following day, or he'd say, "Oh, I was probably a little bit," I'll just say, out of hand.
When did they start?
Probably about 6 months after moving in.
How long did they live there?
They lived there from May of 2012 until July of 2017.
For 5 years, you put up with that mess. You must like drama.
Only when he was drinking.
Yeah, you know you got drama addicts out here. If there ain't no drama in their life is just boring. Not. Yeah, it's a boring life.
I really wanted to help him out. So
I want to hear that part from you, sir. Were you doing this right after moving in, and you did it for 5 years?
Your Honor, I do have a drinking problem, and...
All right, but ain't that much drunk in the world. But you texting somebody every night.
I have actually a sober date.
Crackheads don't do that. What? That's more than drinking.
I am sober now since April.
Well, let's talk about that, though.
Yes, there was a few times that he was trying to collect money from me, and I'd text him back.
Okay, but he said outside of collecting money, you just randomly wake up in the middle of the night and start texting him like President Trump does.
No, sir.
He doesn't text, or he doesn't tweet those foul stuff, but he wakes up in the middle of the night and tweets. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, some folks can't sleep at night. I wake up in the middle of the night. I don't go to tweeting. But anyhow, what else you want me to know?
There was a time as well in January of 2016 when Mr. Lelis threatened me personally, and there was a friend of mine with me at the time that witnessed that.
Was he drunk again?
Yes.
And all you were trying to do was get your rent?
Yeah, we just happened to bump into each other. I was with a friend of mine, and we were at a restaurant, and he happened to be at the same place at the bar. And so he came over, and the conversation went onto the rent, which I did not initiate at first at that point. And it came to a stage where he had claimed that he was a Navy SEAL and he knew people that could get these problems taken care of. And he said he would take out a hit on me. He gave and be money ahead for doing that. I didn't honestly take it too seriously at the time, but when he repeated that again, I stood up and face to face, I said, do we need to contact the police and let them know about this conversation? At that point, he backed down and stormed off.
Now, this was still in his drunken days. Do you know of him having sobered up?
He had been sober for short stretches on various occasions, and I like that man. I absolutely like that man.
Now, when is the longest period of time that you are aware of? And, for example, today? Do you know?
I have no reason to doubt that. He seems sober right now, and
you're not getting those texts?
That's correct.
All right. Well, as long as you don't get the text, you should be all right. We know he's sober when there are no texts.
That's right.
When was the last text or confrontation?
Let's see. I would say May, June.
No, Your Honor. I would say that those dates are incorrect as far as the texting.
When's the last text you knew of?
Probably when he was intoxicated.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. And you know that's a lush answer too. I'm sorry. I'm not calling you a lush, but that answer, when did he last do it? When he was last intoxicated. Go ahead.
So the Lelises would periodically fall behind on rent, but they seemed to be making a sincere effort to really catch up, and then they would pay the next month and things. And so I really tried to work with them for quite a period of time, but it's come to a point where just my nerves.
Okay, what months do they owe for? You have a list?
Yes, I do, sir.
And how much is the rent? It's on here?
Yes, it is. From this year.
Okay, so from April 17 through July 17, $1,200 a month, then $100 a month in late fees. And let me hear from them.
Your Honor, that is not the truth. We have moved out of the premises on June, or actually July 2nd.
So he's not telling the truth?
No.
Man, go get his phone. So he can,
this guy's phone?
So he can text this man. Do your thing, sir. Man coming here, he ain't telling. No, you do your thing. He ain't telling the truth. The man lying on you, I'm going to give you permission to send him one of them nasty texts.
No, sir.
That you usually do. Do what you do.
Those days are far behind me.
Do what you do.
Can I elaborate?
Go ahead.
So a few days before we moved out, we asked, was it okay for us to stay a couple days in July because we were moving into our new place? And he said, I would be okay with that. The first My U-Haul was packed up, ready to go. I did the next right thing as a tenant would do. Came back on the 2nd, cleaned the place out to...
So that's July, but why don't we just go over all the months? Did you pay April 17's rent?
No, I did not.
Did you pay May 17?
No, I did not.
Did you pay June 17?
I paid $300 of that month.
All right. And what's your defense to the other months?
My other defense is I had performed work for a major flood that occurred in 2014 of the premises at the townhome.
At his property?
Yes.
The one you rented from him?
Yes.
And was there an agreement regarding you performing that work?
There was a phone agreement that there was a major flood. Can you come and take a look at this? Do you want me to take care of the work? And he said, yes, take care of the work. And I said, this is extensive damage. It's a lot of money here. And he agreed to take care of the work.
Okay. So he owes you, that's your counterclaim,
Yes.
$3,700 for the unpaid work from 2014. Was there ever a price? Did you come back to him and say, this is how much it costs?
He was very hostile at that
about
point.
What? You just cleaned up his house. What is he hostile about? One of them texts?
The flood was so bad, we had to move out of the premises. I had taken care of the work, ventilated the walls, had to remove sheetrock.
Got it. Why was he hostile if you took care of his place like that?
He wanted his month's rent for the month that the flood took place that had to be worked on, even though we were not living there.
Okay, and you said no because I wasn't able to stay there because of the flood.
According to him, that the flood was our fault.
Okay, and what did happen to cause the flood?
When I arrived on the scene, the fire department was there to shut off the water, which the main water main broke.
Okay, so you say the water main. And the question is, once again, did you ever, that was 3 years ago, have you since then concluded how much or agreed on how much that work was worth? You can't just pick your own number.
No.
You got to say, okay, I did this amount of work. Are you going to either knock that off the rent or are you going to pay me? And if he says, well, I don't know how much that is, then you have to have some type of response. You have to say, well, here's 37. Since you don't know how much it is, let me give you something that shows. And he says, well, no, I'm not paying you that 37. Or he says, yes, I'll pay you that 3,700. What happened?
When I went to discuss the numbers, which was basically every month I was paying rent, the first time we had the conversation says, your time is not worth it. I am not going to pay you for this work.
How much did you tell him?
I was trying to talk to him about the amount. I told him between $3,000 and $4,000.
And he said, your time is not worth that?
Yes.
All right, sir. Tell me about the repairs.
No agreement was ever made.
So what did you expect?
Nothing ever signed. So he called and said that he was at the unit at that time. I said, do I need to come down and evaluate this, or do you have it under control?
Sir, did he ever tell you how much he wanted for all the work that he did?
I never have seen a number until today.
Did
literally.
he ever tell you?
No.
All right, and you never asked?
No.
You never asked how much I owe you for all that work you did to address the flood that came?
Not
you never asked?
Not at that time. About 3-4 months after the flood was the only time, was when it came up again.
What was the number?
And there was no number.
All right, so you didn't come to a number. He wants $3,700. I think that's fair. $3,700 is your judgment. $5,000 is your judgment. Now you deduct, and that's what you have. Have a good day.
I really do hope that they get their lives together and everything. So I wish the best for them.
I think justice was served here, and that the line that took place in the court is not acceptable.